Hello everyone. In this series of video lectures, I will be discussing about Dirac delta functions, and in this first video, I will define Dirac delta function and we will see how to represent or how to model our Dirac delta function as a limiting case of other functions. And in the following video, we will learn about its properties and we will also solve few problems related to Dirac delta functions. And we also learn about the Dirac delta function in 3 dimensions or in 2 dimensions. Okay, so let's define. So the definition, so the Dirac delta function is a function which is infinitely high and have infinitesimally small base or width, and the area under the curve, that is area under Dirac delta function, is unity. Okay, so mathematically it is represented as delta x minus x naught equals to infinity if x equals to x naught and equals to 0 if x not equals to x naught. Okay. So graphically you can represent it like this. Say you have a point x naught here, then it will have infinite peak at this point, that is at x naught, and for other values of x it will be 0. So 0 everywhere, and then it has peak up to infinity, then again 0 everywhere. So this is a representation of delta x minus x naught. Okay, so as you can see, it doesn't have any definite value at x equals to x naught. So Dirac delta function is not a legitimate function or a generalized function. Sometimes it is called a distribution, that is, we can say it is a Dirac delta distribution. So if you set x naught equals to 0, then Dirac delta function is defined at x equals to 0. So delta x equals to infinity at x equals to 0 when x equals to 0, and it is 0 when x not equals to 0 or otherwise. Okay, and the area under this curve, that is integration from minus infinity to plus infinity delta x dx is equals to 1, or minus infinity to plus infinity delta x minus x naught dx is equals to 1. That is, area under this Dirac delta function is 1. Sometimes it is also written like this, say 0 minus epsilon to 0 plus epsilon delta x dx equals to 1, where epsilon is infinitesimally small positive number. So this is the definition of Dirac delta function. So now let's find its dimension. Okay, so the dimension of delta x is inverse of the dimension of its argument. So the dimension of delta x is inverse of length. Okay, now if the Dirac delta function is defined, say, in momentum space, that is delta p, then its dimension will be inverse of momentum. Okay, you can easily argue it from its definition, that is from this definition, that is this you can see that the integration from minus infinity to plus infinity delta x dx is equals to 1. So 1 is a number. Okay, so the dimension of delta x will be inverse of dx. So as dx has the length of x in position space or coordinate space, so the dimension of delta x is inverse of length. So if it is defined in momentum space, then it will have the dimension inverse of momentum. So this is how you can calculate the dimension, or you can say the dimension of delta function is its inverse of its argument. Now let's see how to represent a Dirac delta function, or how to model a Dirac delta function as a limiting case of other functions. Okay. So these are the few representations of Dirac delta function. There are many more representations. You can find it on Wolfram site. So among these representations, I will show you that these actually represent a Dirac delta function, but for the rest you can check them on your own. Okay. So as our first example, let us consider a rectangular function which is defined within minus a by 2 to plus a by 2. That is, let's consider this rectangular function within minus a by 2 to plus a by 2. So the width of the base is a, and let's choose its height in such a way such that the area under this curve is equals to 1. So let's choose its height, so 1 over a. So now the area is a times 1 over a, which is equals to 1. So in our case, fx is 1 over a in the range minus a by 2 to x a by 2 and 0 otherwise. And also at x equals to a by 2, say plus minus a by 2, f of x has a value 1 over 2a, that is the average value. Okay. Now this rectangular function will behave as a Dirac delta function in the limit a tends to 0. So limit a tends to 0, fx will behave as a delta function. Okay. Why so? So if you increase the value of a, you will see that the base with the width or the base will decrease. Okay. And the height will increase like this, in such a way that the area under the curve remains constant or remains unity. Okay. So if you further decrease the value of a, then the width will decrease further, but the height will increase. Again, the area under this curve is will be 1, and for a very small value of a, this function will behave as a Dirac delta function. Okay. So this is how you can model a Dirac delta function using a rectangular function. So let's see another example. Let's consider a triangular function. So again, let's choose its height and width or base in such a way such that the area under the triangle should be 1. Okay. So let's choose its base within minus a to a, and its height is 1 over a. So as you can see that also in this case, area is half times 2a times 1 over a, which is 1. Again, in the limit a tends to 0, this rectangular function will also behave as a delta function. So if you decrease the value of a, the width or the base will decrease and the height will increase, and for a sufficient small value of a, it will behave as a Dirac delta function. Now to clearly understand it, let's see it graphically. So here you can see that this green curve represents a rectangle whose height is at half and its base is from its spread is minus 2 to plus 2. So the area under the curve is 1. Now as I decrease the value of a, you can see that its base will decreases and its height increases, but the area remains unity. Okay, let's consider this value, say a equals to 0.5. so for a equals to 0.5, the height reaches a value 2 and its base is ranges from minus 0.5 to plus 0.5. so the again area under the curve is 1. And if I decrease the value of a further, then it as you can see, it will behave as a Dirac delta function. Okay, so this is how you can model a Dirac delta function. And if you can predict that for a tends to 0, the peak will reach infinity. This is the definition of an ideal Dirac delta function. Okay, now let's see some other examples. Another example is the Gaussian function or the Gaussian distribution. For in the limit, its standard deviation tends to 0. So that is a Gaussian function. Let's consider a Gaussian function, say g sigma x equals to 1 over root over 2 pi sigma e to the power minus x square to sigma square. So this Gaussian function for the limit sigma tends to 0, g sigma x will behave as a delta function. Okay, but to check this, you also need to check that the area under this Gaussian function is unity. So the area under g sigma x will be minus infinity to plus infinity g sigma x dx, which is equals to 1 over 2 pi sigma minus infinity to plus infinity e to the power minus x square to sigma square. And this is a standard Gaussian integral. We all know its value. And this is root over pi by b, and in our case b is 1 over 2 sigma square. So this the value of this integral will be 1 over root over 2 pi sigma root over pi, and b is 1 over 2 sigma square. So each term will cancel out and it will give the area under the curve is equals to unity. So now let's see graphically will it behave as a delta function or not. So now as you can see, this red curve represents a Gaussian distribution for sigma equals to say 1.2. Now if I decrease the value of sigma, its peak will increase and its width or the base will decrease, and in a limit sigma tends to 0, it will behave as a delta function, and obviously the area under this distribution will always be 1. But these are not a good way to define a delta function, because it can be shown that such function integrates to 0. Why so? So let's see. Suppose the vertical axis is entirely encased with rectangles whose height is 1. Okay, so this vertical axis is entirely encased with rectangles, and say suppose the width of the first rectangle is epsilon, then the width of the second rectangle will be epsilon by 2. Okay, and the third one will be the half of the previous one. So this is how you can model it up to infinity. Now let's find its total area. So total area will be, for this case, A is equals to, for the first rectangle the height is 1 and the width is epsilon, so the area is epsilon times 1. For the second one, it is epsilon by 2 times 1, and for the third one it is epsilon by 4 times 1, and so on. So now if you take common epsilon, so then in the parenthesis you will have 1 plus half plus 1 by 4 up to infinity. Now you can see it is a GP series with common ratio half, and the sum of this GP series will be epsilon times 1 minus 1 over 1 minus half, or which is equals to 2 epsilon. So for this system, the area could be a less than equals to 2 epsilon. I am using less than because for such infinite number of rectangles the area is 2 epsilons, but one can't reach infinity, so the area will be less than 2 epsilon. So that's why I write less than equals to 2 epsilon. Now as you can see, as epsilon tends to 0, area tends to 0. So but the area under G sigma x is always 1. So this is happening because in this case limit sigma tends to 0, integration from minus infinity to plus infinity G sigma x dx is not equals to minus infinity to plus infinity limit sigma tends to 0 gx dx. That is, the integral has the value 1 for every sigma greater than 0. So the limit of the integral is 1 as sigma tends to 0. However, if one takes the limit of the integrand first and then integrates, then the answer is 0. So you have to be careful about such things when you are going to model delta function as a limiting case of other functions. In the next video, we will see about the exponential representation of a Dirac delta function. So see you in the next video.